Okay, everyone, I have a few minutes past 11:30 on my watch, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, my name is Nicole Deringer. Welcome to Boundary Systems Weekly Webinar Series. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel after the presentation. Please be sure to check there for other topics you may have missed or visit boundarysys.com for upcoming events. Today, one of our senior technical specialists, Johan Stryden, will be presenting Windchill's MPM Link. Johan will be happy to take questions throughout the presentation, but please use GoToWebinar's questions pane in your panel to do so, because listeners will be in listen-only mode for the entirety of the presentation, and Johan will answer those either throughout or at the very end. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Johan.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks, Nicole, for the introductions. So let's start off with just having a quick look at the agenda for the webinar. So what we're going to do is to have a look at Windchill MPM Link. So I will do an introduction to myself, to the topic, as well as to boundary systems. Then do the demonstration, and then go on to some questions and answers. So before I start, I've got a quick poll just to make sure everybody can hear me okay. Okay, so it looks like most people has answered and everybody can hear me okay. So that's good. Let's carry on with the topics. So before I start, I just want to give a very quick overview of just what MPM Link is. So it is used to transform the engineering design bill of material, or EBOM, into a mBOM, or manufacturing bill of material. It's also got the functionality and capability to create manufacturing process plans, and from those you can then automatically generate electronic works instructions. So just a little bit about myself. As Nicole says, my name is Johan Stryden. I am a senior technical specialist at Boundary Systems. I've got more than 20 years experience in the PTC product range, and I am a PTC certified Windchill implementer and trainer. Then a little bit about Boundary itself. So Boundary Systems is a technology leader and having PTC as the main partners. We've got our a couple of our main customers listed here. So we've also got other partners that I'll mention a little bit later on. We've got capabilities in the areas of product lifecycle management, data management, CAD design, consulting, simulation, and also product development. Just a bit more about Boundary Systems. So we have several industry awards. We also accredited by PTC as Windchill implementers, service partners, as well as PTC training certified partner. Then, as I mentioned earlier on, it's not PTC is our main partner, but we also partner with other companies. So you might know some of these things like Solid Thinking and ETRH that we use a lot. There's also things like ZWCAD, that is 2D CAD, that is like a replacement for AutoCAD. Then, and I will show this one again at the end of the presentation, just for reference purposes. So if you need to get hold of me for any technical questions afterwards, There is my email address. And if you've got any sales queries, you can contact sales@boundarysys.com or always refer back to our website, boundarysys.com. Then what we're going to do in the demonstration itself is, like I mentioned, we're going to look at BOM transformation, eBOM to mBOM, as well as manufacturing process planning. So before I start with the actual demonstration, I've got two other quick polls that I'd like to ask you guys. Okay, good, and let me quickly show you. So everybody is currently using Windchill. And if we can quickly do the next one. So everybody is using PDMLink, but nobody is currently using MPMLink. Very good. So hopefully this will be interesting to you guys. Okay, so let's start off with just having a look at, like I mentioned, firstly, the transformation from your engineering to your manufacturing bill of material. So what I've done is I've already started creating this, but I will carry on through the process to show you guys how it can work. So in this case, I've got for my CAD generator, I've created a manufacturing view for that, and once you've got that created, there's this function that's called Manufacturing Associative Product Structure Browser. So what this gives you is the ability to compare on the left-hand side. You will notice it says it is the design view. So that's default with inside of PDMLink. And on the right-hand side, there is the manufacturing view. You will also notice a couple of things. So there's this little indicator that shows little green tick boxes. That means there is a equivalent part on the other side already created. So you'll also notice if I go to the visualization in here, it will dynamically show me which part has already been allocated from the design side to the manufacturing side. So on the left hand side, like I said, this is my design one that I can see, and you can see that is the complete one. But on the right hand side, at this stage, there is only the trailer and the cabinet associated and nothing else. It's also got the ability to do some reporting where I can have a look at what which of the items has been allocated or not. So one of the functions I can do here is say search what is the differences between these to have a quick view of any items that has not been allocated yet, and that can be from a propagation perspective or from a comparing the structure perspective. You'll also notice I can have a look at only searching for quantities. So in some cases you might want to, in the design side, you might have 4 fasteners or 4 bolts that you want to split into sub-assemblies on the manufacturing side. So you can do that. So you can also then double check to make sure that the differences has been allocated or not been allocated. So here I can see some of the mine high level items that has not been allocated yet. This one is just a little bit hanging. Just going to quickly close the view and reopen it. Okay, so as I said, those little tick boxes show that there is an occurrence created on the other side of it. So to create these structures is as simple as you can take a sub-assembly or separate components as is, and you can restructure them. So by plain simply copying and pasting the items. So if I right click on it, you can see there is a function that plain simply says copy. I can go to that assembly and I say paste it as is, or just paste. You'll notice the visualization will update. Also at the same time, you will notice that these little icons will update, showing the new information. And there we can see the new item has been placed in the correct location, and it's assigned, and the green tick is now available on both sides, showing that it has updated it. If I need to, for some reason, make a change to any of these assemblies or the structure as I paste it, there's several different options. So I'll show you. If I copy it once again, go to this main one, and I've also got the option to say paste it as a new branch. So what that will do is it will create a manufacturing view for that specific assembly, or I can say create a new, or paste it as a new part number, and I can even assign them a new part number. So I'm just going to use paste with a new branch. You will see it will ask me some information. So what view do I want? It's in this case manufacturing. You'll also see there's several other options that can be selected. So you can, for instance, create a type that is specifically for costing purposes down, or you can have alternate BOMs. So you can have multiple of these type of views that you can create. You've also got the options to completely duplicate children with or without propagation. So with propagation means it will create a manufacturing view for all of it. Without means it will copy it across as is, but no propagation will take place. And I can then say paste. Okay, and you will see that that item has now been created, and I can actually now start making changes to this electrical assembly as well. So you'll see at this stage, it looks exactly the same on both sides. But if I want to now, for instance, take the engine assembly and I want to place it inside of the electrical one, or let's make it the generator one. I want to combine it inside the electrical assembly. I can from here once again say copy, go into my electrical one and say paste. You will also notice during this paste process, it will do the recalculation of all of these items to ensure that those items has been reconciled to both sides, so that their equivalence is updated. So you'll notice there, even though it's now sitting at a lower level in the structure, it has been allocated and everything looks good. Okay, so you can then obviously follow the same process all the way to ensure that all the items has been allocated from the one side to the other one. So I'm not going to complete that at this stage. It is just a repetitive process of the same thing. So I'm just going to complete the action and check it in at this stage. So the next bit of the functionality is to use the process, the manufacturing process plan. So you'll notice there is what I've got over here. I created a generator main plan. When you create these plans, you can also define, is this for production or for assembly or for service? So you might have different plans depending on which operations you are performing on the equipment. So in this case, it is to produce it. So I'm going to start off with opening that in my process plan workbench. So I've started already to create the initial plan itself. And you will see that it is looking at, once again, that manufacturing view. So if we look at this visualization here, you will see that it doesn't have all the components because I didn't allocate them all from a BOM perspective. But what I can also do in here, so these are each of my steps in my process. So to create any of these, it is simply as inserting operations. You've also got functionality to insert sequences or standard procedures. So if there's a standard procedure that you usually follow to assemble something or create something, you can save those, and you can see if I select on any one of these, I can right click and I can then save it as a standard operation to reuse in future process plans. If I have a look at the steps that I've got defined, so my first step is, it is just the trailer frame. I've also got additional things that can add to this. So in this case, what I've got is a jig that I've got to use to actually weld that frame together. The next step I've got is to start assembling some of these other items into the onto the frame itself. So before we carry on, I want to first show you just what does it look like currently if I say I want to look at what the works instructions look like. Okay, so as you can see, I've got 5 steps defined. If I go to my users, I can see over there the description, the name, some of the other information I can fill in. I can also define what is the setup time, labor time, processing time for each one of those steps. So let's quickly keep it as is, and then I will show you what the works instructions look like at this stage. So it's simple as selecting generate works instructions, and you will notice, so step number 1 is frame weldment. This is the item that's being used. I've also got a resource. In this case, it is a tool. And it is that jig. You can also see the little thumbnail over here, and I'll show you in a second what it looks like if I carry on further, or by selecting on it. So my second step in this case, we haven't got a description or any details filled in, but I can see these are all the components I'm going to use, the quantities of those, and once again also some of the visualization. These are all hyperlinked, so I can at any stage select on any one of them, and what it will do is it will open it up in clear view, and I can actually see, spin it around, use all the standard clear view functionality to have a look at it. You'll also see there, I can see if there's any multiple views. So that's one quick way to have a look at it. So this is information you can pass over to the workshop, where they can have this view. If they have any additional or require any additional information, they can just select on the view and they can see the additional information. Okay, so now that we've got an idea of what we are working on, let's start making some changes to it. So this is my second step. So let's make this one frame assembly. And then can also start filling in some of the additional information in here. So just going to quickly fill that in. Okay, I can also specify names for these. I'll show you some of the additional information you can also supply. But let's start and look at how do we actually assign some of these items to them. So one thing that I need to obviously make sure of, so similar thing to what I showed you in the comparison between the design and the manufacturing BOM, you've also got similar functionality in this process plan where you can see what items has been allocated so far. So if we look here at the allocation status, so I can see in here 24% of the items has been assigned. In the trailer assembly, however, nothing else at a higher level has been assigned. Okay, so let's start off, and I'm going to add some of these items that's not been assigned into the next step of the process. So it is as simple as dragging and dropping. You will notice if I have a look at the visualization, that will start updating, and you can see that's those bolts that just got added. You'll also notice here some of the icons has changed to show that there's additional things added. I can also add things like my fenders and my wheel assembly. Okay, add them in. So you'll see dynamically the visualization will update to show what has been allocated. Same thing on the left hand side, it will also update to show what hasn't been allocated yet. So it's very clear and simple to identify which items hasn't been allocated yet. Okay, so there's an additional item that I want to for now add in there as well. So you'll notice that as I select on items over here, they will also highlight in the BOM view at the top as I select the items over here. So let's start off with this bottom cabinet. Going to add that to the next step of the process. Once again, you'll notice the refresh as the information gets loaded, and I can go through the whole process like that by adding these items. So there's the frame. and I'm going to take that across as well. Okay, and the last one I want to add for now is just the top cover. Okay, so we've basically got the outer shell assembled at this stage in the process. And before we carry on, I'm going to show you how to do the visualization side of it to create the viewable. So before I carry on, I'm just going to check in all the items that I've just worked on. And then use this replay button where I can actually replay the actions as they've been or as they are happening. So you'll notice that I can jump forward in the process, see as the items gets assembled. And we've also got a couple of other icons over here. So I can also color code the different items so I can very quickly see which items is in which process step itself. There's also things like I can isolate the specific parts, or I can emphasize the parts that's not in the latest iteration. So as the design might update, your manufacturing view might update, and from there, in some cases, you need to ensure that the latest information is available. Okay, so before we carry on with the process, I want to show you one or two other capabilities that's in here. So one of the other things is I've mentioned earlier on, or I can't remember if I have mentioned all the items. There's also functionality in here where you can define a plant. So you might create this process for a specific plant, and you might have one design and one manufacturing view, but your process might be different depending on which plant it gets created or assembled. Because of the tooling or equipment that might be different, so you can associate a plant with this. And as part of that, all the equipment that's related to that plant will update. You will also see there's several other things where you can, for instance, create sub-operations inside of operations. You can see which parts are allocated to specific steps. Any resources that's being used. So in this case, I showed you the fixture. That's a jig that's being used. There's also things like control characteristics. So if there are very specific tolerances or geometric tolerances that's being used, and those are defined inside the CAD system, they can actually come across, and you can use those in your process plan to ensure that as the items get assembled, they also use those tolerances as part of the assembly process. Then there's also things like standard procedures that can be used as part of each. If we go back to the some of the attributes, you will see that I've showed you earlier on about the description. There's also an area for a long description where you can copy and paste information from things like Word, or you can just type it in. You've also got things like hyperlinks where you can link to external systems or other web pages, but you can add any additional information in here. And for instance, I can highlight some of this in a different color, and I will show you what that looks like once we're done and we're looking at the work instructions. Okay, so you'll see what it's done is it updated it, so it checked it out. So once again, quickly going to check it back in. Just also for reference, any other documentation that might be used. So if there's a specification sheet or something like that that is needed for the process step, for the complete process or the specific process step, those can also be added per step, and they will also appear in the works instructions for the users to select on and view. Okay, so just before we carry on, I want to show you some of the other functionality that can be available directly without going into the Explorer itself. So I mentioned this is one of the plants that I've created. So let me just quickly show you some of the functionality that's available. So if I say I want to create a new manufacturing resource, there are several items that can be selected from here. So I can specify a plant, process material, a resource group, a skill, tooling, a work center. So there's a lot of things that can be added here. Also with a lot of these, there are sub-items. So for instance, if I want to add a skill, I can define what type of skill it is, either assembler, assistant, electrician. So I might need an electrician in one of the steps, but an assembler or a machinist at some of the other steps. So you can define all of those, and they can then be used in the process plan. So the people has got all the information that they need at that point in time when they view the work instructions. Also, if I have a look at this process plan that I've created, so like I mentioned, you don't have to go into this workbench to display it. You will notice that I can directly from here also have a look at the work instructions. So anybody that's got viewing access inside of Windchill can right click on any of those very quickly and see the information. So there you can see I've added some long description. You can see how it's highlighted in the color that I've defined. If we go lower down, you can also you'll also notice the additional items that have been added into these steps. Okay, so before we carry on with that, there's one last thing that I'd like to show you. And you might have seen that there wasn't viewables for the other two items. So let's quickly have a look at that. And for that stage, I'm going to say, quickly create a new representation for that. And also at the next step, create a representation for that as well. Okay, so what it does now is it actually grabs all the viewable information of the items that was added to that step, and it creates a viewable that I can then use to edit that. So if I go to my works instructions, you can see I've got the option to say edit representations. From here I can also view additional information, but because there's nothing created yet, you'll notice I can just say start clear view client. And it will launch clear view client. Okay, so there I can see my trailer. You will also see that some of the items are a lighter gray color than the others. So it automatically makes the items that you've just added for that specific step, for step 3, into a darker color. So I've got my standard clear view functionality where I can, for instance, create a note of what has to happen here. So something like this comes pre-assembled, and let's add another one for the mud guards to say weld using the supplied jig. Okay, once I'm done, I can save that annotation Okay, and you'll notice that it's saved at this stage, and I can then follow the same process for the next item. Once again, edit the representation. So one of the things that I'm not showing you today is in Windchill 11.2 that was launched about a month ago. There's also new additional functionality that's been added. So some of these can also now be created, animations and all of those inside of Creo Illustrate, and that link is dynamically created, and it's not a separate process to actually allocate those anymore. Whereas in the current version, or the one I'm using today, those items need to be separately allocated. Okay, so in this case, let's add some additional functionality, just to expand it a little bit so the person can see a bit more clear what they have to do. Gonna restore the location, spin it a little bit more, and let's add another note in here. Something like that. Okay, and I'm going to save that one as a new name, just to show you what actually happens then. Okay, so if we have a look at one of the ones that I created earlier on, I just want to show you what it also looks like then. If I say edit representations there, you will see that it actually displays those two representations already. So if I had to go back to any of the ones that I created now, and I do a similar thing of viewing the representations, you will see that directly in here then. Okay, so once I'm done with all of that, I've allocated everything that I need. My main output then is once again the works instructions, and if I say generate me those, I should now have both, well, all 4 of the steps in there that has items allocated to it, as well as the visualization that I've just created with the 2 notes. And you'll notice this one has got both images in there that I've saved. So this can now be used as is. In a case where somebody needs to or might want to print this out, you will see here at the top I can specify what size or format I want this in, and if I select it, it will automatically resize everything into that format. And you will see there it will open up my print dialog where I can actually select what I want to print. So I'm going to use standard PDF, and I'm just going to save it to my desktop. Okay, while it's generating, if I scroll down, so you will see it will resize it in this case into a page for all the information and a separate page for the image. Same thing, page of information and a page for the image. And over here is the PDF version of that same information. So this is now very quick and easy to pass on to other people for use. Also, this page, you can see it's got PTC and Windchill branding. This can be updated to show your company branding in this information page itself. So that is the end of the presentation, or the end of the demonstration. So we had a look at how to transform your engineering bill of material to your manufacturing bill of material, as well as the creation of the process plans and the output of that as works instructions. So, like I mentioned before, if you have any technical questions after the demonstration or after the webinar, you can contact me, jstradom@boundarysys.com, or sales questions to sales@boundarysys.com, or refer to our website. Are there any questions at this stage? I don't see anything in the questions section. I will give you guys a minute or so to see if there's anything you'd like to ask. Okay, I see there's no additional questions. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed the webinar.